Welcome to all of you B.Sc third year students in online classes of Fishery Science Paper-XIII. Last article we have seen how prawns are to be cultured, how prawns are to be reared, rearing of prawns with these three different methods: by flow-through system, by marine pen system, and third by recirculation system. With this prawn culture, prawn rearing, these are to be we have seen, we have studied. Then today we have seen the next point of prawn culture, that is larval food supply. Those larvae, those prawn which is to be cultured, those prawn, these are to be we have growing in different places, that may be east coast or west coast. These prawn larvae have a supplementary food supply essential to grow these larvae to attain a marketable size. That's why the larval food supply, these are to be essential, these are to be most important. Then which larval food supply, which food these are to be supplied, provided to larvae of these cultured prawns, these Penaeus indicus. The feeding habits of larva changes gradually as it metamorphoses to an advanced stage. As the feeding habits of larva changes gradually, as first these are to be changes gradually, the feeding habits of larva, these are to be changes gradually as it metamorphoses to an advanced stage. The filter feeding follows mixed feeding, and finally the carnivorous. The first stage of the larva, which is to be filter feeding, because due to the dorsal teeth and due to the rostrum, these are to be not well developed. That's why first these are to be filter feeding. First larva they can take the food material which is to be available in water, that with the help of filter feeding mechanism. Then this filter feeding, these are to be changed into mixed feeding, sometimes of filter feeding, sometimes of carnivorous, or sometimes of zooplankton, phytoplankton they can use as a food. Means as first filter feeding follows the mixed feeding, and finally mixed feeding, these are to be avoided, and then carnivorous ones. Means in larva of prawn which is to be cultured, which is to be grown in west coast or the east coast, in culture tanks, in culture medium, first larval feeding habit is to be filter feeding, second larval feeding habit is to be mixed feeding, and last finally it is to be carnivorous type. It is necessary to supply the food which can be ingested during the particular stage of larva. Those stage which is to be growing, those stage which is to be occurring in larval form, larval life, according to this stage we can supply the food. Suppose larva is to be first filter feeding, then those diatoms, planktonic food material, small size food material, these are to be provided, these are to be supplied to the larva, which is to be filter feeding, or those are the culture medium of planktons, those are the culture medium of phytoplanktons or the diatoms. That is filter feeding, necessary, these are to be supplied. Suppose larva, these are to be entered into the next stage, and mixed feeding, these are to be taken. Sometimes they can take plankton food material, sometimes they can take diatoms food material, and sometimes these are to be take the animal food, that is the fry, fingerling, small size, or the zooplankton. They can feed, they can take the food material. Such food these are to be supplied, such food these are to be provided. Or when larva, these are to be change their feeding habit, metamorphose, and it is to be completely carnivorous, feeding on the zooplanktons, feeding on the fry and fingerling. According to their larval development, according to the larval stage, the prawn culturist or the prawn farmer, they can supply, they can provide the such respective food to the respective feeding habit. Filter feeding, provide diatoms. Mixed feeding, some diatoms, some phytoplankton, some zooplankton, and when it is to be carnivorous, then at that time it is to be provided, it is to be supplied, that is carnivorous food such as larvae, such as juveniles, such as fry and fingerlings and zooplanktons, as well as trash fish food. These are to be provided, these are to be supplied. In early stage, they may be supplied with zooplanktons and phytoplanktons. For this food supply, application of organic and inorganic fertilizers may be used. Inorganic and organic fertilizers, these are also provided, these are also supplied. In early stage, they may be supplied with phytoplankton, they may be supplied with zooplankton, as well as it is to be supplied with organic and inorganic fertilizers may be used, may be provided as a supplementary food in culture area of prawns, culture area of Peneus indicus. But care should be taken that at the time of supplementary food, these are to be supplied, these are to be provided. Those are the unnecessary waste material, those are affecting food material such as urea, such as other different material, fertilizer. These fertilizers, these are to be strictly avoided, these are to be prohibited, not supply. Urea or the urea like other those food material, fertilizer which is to be available, these fertilizers, these are to be not supplied, these are to be not provided to the larvae of prawns at the time of supplying the artificial food. The prawn larvae taken very small particle size food, and their size depends upon the diameter of the mouth opening. As prawn larvae take very small particles as a food, and their size depends upon the diameter of the mouth opening. Depending upon the mouth opening, whether the mouth, these are to be complete opening, as these are to be developed, as they can juvenile stage, these are to be attained, the mouth opening, these are to be wide, and they can consume whole food as zooplankton or as a larva or as a fry or fingerling. That's why depending upon larva will take first small food and then they can take large food depending upon the opening of mouth. From the study of mouth parts of the penids, it has been shown that these Peneus indicus or these Peneus monodon, it have main three types of feeding habit depending upon the mouth part, those mouth part which is to present, and development of these mouth part according to metamorphosis, according to the food and feeding. The mouth part, these are to develop, mouth part, these are to be changed, and according to this mouth part, larvae, these are to be change their feeding habit. First, filter feeding. With the help of filter feeding, only small filtered food material, plankton like food material, they can consume, they can use as food material. That is a filter feeding. Second, mixed type of feeding. Mixed feeding, occasionally take filter feeding diatoms, plankton food material. Occasionally they can use dead decaying fertilizer, supplementary food, or they can take the zooplanktons. Means occasionally that is called as mixed type of feeding. And third is the carnivorous type of feeding. Carnivorous type of feeding, it is to be never take filter feeding food, it can never take that is the plankton food material. Only it is to be depend upon the zooplankton, or it is to be depend upon the trash fish or the trash food which is to be provided, supplied by the prawn culturist or the prawn farmers. Means with these three feeding habits, filter feeding first stage, second mixed feeding stage, and third is the carnivorous feeding stage. With these three feeding stage, prawn culturists, prawn farmers, they can provide, they can supply the food material according to the feeding habit, according to the development of the larva in larval condition, in larval stages. They can supply, they can provide the food material, they can provide the food of these prawns. See, these are the prawn culture in marine water, prawn culture in east and west coast. These prawns, these are to be cultured, these are to be harvested, these are to be captured. Then they can keep into a plastic bags or the plastic cartoons, and then these are to be transported, then these are to be packed, or it is to be used as a food. The protozoa and mysis stages are adapted only for filter feeding. The protozoa and mysis stages are adapted only for filter feeding of phytoplankton suspended in water and prefer microscopic planktonic food particles. What is the characteristics? The protozoa and mysis stages are adapted only for filter feeding of phytoplankton suspended in water and prefer microscopic planktonic food particles such as unicellular algae and diatoms. Those are the unicellular algae and those are the diatoms. These diatoms, unicellular algae, these are to be taken as the protozoa and mysis stages are adapted for only filter feeding stage, and they can depend upon the phytoplankton suspended material which is to be available, which is to be found in microscopic planktonic food particle they can take, in which unicellular and diatoms food materials are the food, these are to be consumed, these are to be taken. When the mysis metamorphosis into the post larva or sudden changes takes place in mouth part, when the mysis these are to be metamorphosed, as mysis metamorphosis these are to be taken, or any sudden change which is to be occur in the mouth part, at that time the mixed feeding types of food these are to be taken. Mixed type of food they can take, that is the mixed feeding types of food in the zoea larva of prawns they can take, they can consume. The zoea stages are adapted for filter feeding as well as carnivorous diet. Zoea stage, zoea larva stage, these are to be adapted for filter feeding as well as carnivorous diet and prefer phytoplankton as well as zooplankton food material. They can prefer, they can use the food, that food is the phytoplankton as well as the food is the zooplankton. The mysis and post larva, the mysis and post larva are strictly carnivorous. Mysis and post larva are strictly carnivorous and prefer the rotifers, cladoceras, artemias and other anatras, other different types of the copepods, amphipods, ostracopods. These are different food material, these are to be used as a food. As mysis and post larva, these are to be a strictly carnivorous. As mouth part these are to be developed, as mouth part these are to be forms. The mouth part these are to be changes from filter feeding to mixed feeding to carnivorous, and in the carnivorous stage they can prefer rotifers, cladoceras, artemias, then ostracopods, amphipods, varieties of larvae they can use as a food in larval condition, or they can supply, they can provide it such type of food material. The carnivorous types of mouth part is found in the post larva prawns. Why this carnivorous type of feeding these are to be occur? Why this carnivorous type of feeding these are to be seen? Because carnivorous type of mouth part is found. Carnivorous type of mouth part these are to be developed. Fin larva these are to be changed. Fin these are to be metamorphosed. And as mouth part these are to be changed. Mouth part these are to be developed. Then it is to be carnivorous type of, because rostrum and other different mouth part these are to be strong, well developed, which is to be adapted, which is to be suited for the carnivorous type of food and feeding, and hence post larva of these prawns these are to be found as a carnivorous, found as a animal eater or the animal food they can take, they can given. With this we have seen the food which is to be supplied, food which is to be provided to the larvae. Then next point, or the last point of this prawn culture or marine water prawn culture, and that last point is the important, which is methods of prawn fishing. Up to here we have culture prawn, we have stored these prawn, food material these are to be supplied, culture system these are to be adapted, all technique these are to be we can done, all technique these are to be we can use. After 6 to 9 months, when we are particularly growing these prawns these are to be grow, prawn these are to be attain marketable size, and in market there is a high demand, more demand. Supply of prawn these are to be less, these are to be minimum. At that time these prawn can be captured, these prawn can be harvested, and methods of prawn fishing or methods of harvesting of prawn these are to be essential, these are to be most important, because it is again affect on the, that is marketing strategies as well, it is to be affect on the prawn culturist or the prawn farmers, which is to be important, which is to be most useful. That's why methods of prawn fishing is a important and most crucial factor for the production, for the harvest of prawns and prawn products. Then methods of prawn fishing we have simplified, we have studied in a different distinct headings. Fishing or catching. Prawns, these are to be grow a marketable size, attain a marketable consumable size, then these are to be catched, then these are to be captured, harvested. That's why fishing is the art of catching of the aquatic animal. That may be fish, that may be prawn, that may be crab, that may be mollusk. It is the fishing is the art of catching of aquatic animals, not only fish, but that is arthropods such as crustaceans, such as mollusks, such as other non-fish organisms, squids, octopus, loligo, sepia, or other different animal to catch, to capture. It is called as the fish catching. Other than aquatic animal, fishing is considered to be the earliest form of hunting, and it is the world's oldest fishing industry. Fishing is considered to be the earliest form and simplest form of hunting of an animal, and this hunting or the catching of fish is the simplest and most primitive method that is the occur which is to be found in world's history. Various methods are employed to man and to area to catch, to capture, to harvest the culture prawns, culture Peneus indicus. Means in West Coast, methods of prawn fishing is to be different. In West Coast, methods of prawn fishing, these are to be different. Employed by fish culture or the prawn culturists, prawn farmers. The methods of prawn fishing, these are to be different to the other coastal areas, such may be Persian Gulf, such may be Singapore coast, such may be Thailand, Vietnam, or in other countries. The culture system, these are to be different, these are to be variable from place to place, and that's why the various methods are employed by man to catch or to harvest these cultured prawns, these growing prawns. The cultured marine prawns can be captured by two ways. Cultured marine prawns, these are to be caught, these are to be captured by two ways, either drying out the culture site, drying out the culture water bodies, or emptying the cultured medium. In those areas, prawn should be cultured. In those areas, prawn should be grown. One method, that is first method, those areas marine prawns can be captured. These are to be fishing is to be done by two ways, by two methods. One is by drying the pond, drying out the water bodies. Drying out the water bodies, in those water bodies, prawn can be cultured, prawn can be grown. In that water bodies, prawn water is to be removed, and when water these are to be removed with screening, tying the screen or the welcome mosquito cloths. All water these are to be filtered, all water these are to be removed, and only prawn these are to be found, these are to be occurring in culture ponds, culture medium. Or second, emptying the cultured medium. Those cultured water bodies, they can empty, and that's why this is the two method. Number of traditional and modern methods, these are to be used. Number of traditional and modern methods. Traditional method, in ancient time, the fishermen's, prawn culturist, prawn farmer, they can adopt a technique, methods which is to be worldwide and which is to be ancient with traditional ways. It is called as the traditional methods. And modern methods, use of modern techniques, tools and equipment to catch prawns, to capture prawns. The modern techniques, tools, these are to be adopted, these are to be used, or devices used. Latest technique, these are to be used. Latest technology they can use with modern techniques and tools. When fishes, these are prawns, these are to be caught, these are to be captured. It is called as that is modern method, modern devices which is to be used to capture prawns in culture ponds, in culture water bodies. Number of traditional and modern methods, devices with latest technique were used to catch the prawns. Non-mechanized and mechanized boats, mechanized and non-mechanized crafts, gears are also used to capture the cultured prawn in both East Coast and West Coast. The various kinds of fishing crafts designed and built according to the local condition. Again, interesting. Various kinds of fishing crafts, fishing gears. These fishing craft, fishing gear, these are to be designed and built, constructed according to the local condition, according to the local area, according to the local condition, according to the local area, whether nature of water bodies, age of the prawns, size of the prawns, all these are to be consideration, and according to these size, according to age, according to the culture of water bodies, according to all these cultured condition or the captured condition, these various types of fishing crafts and nets, they can design and they can build, they can construct. They can design, they can build and they can construct, and with the help of these constructive nets, constructive gears or the craft, the prawn culturist or the prawn farmer, they can capture, they can harvest the prawn, and then they can enter into the market for fresh condition in selling, for it is to be for sold condition. See the figure. We have seen, observed. What is in figure? See this figure which is to be seen, which is to be seen. Which condition seen in this figure? This is the ciliate legs which is to be observed. This is the ciliate leg which is to be observed. These are the cephalothorax legs which is to be observed. These are the abdominal legs. This is the, again, these are the antennules, antenna which is to be found, which is to be seen. This is the rostrum which is to be observed, and this is the eye. Eyes are to be stalk. Eyes are to be stalk, and this is the uropod or the tails. Behind these structure, behind these character, one more character which is to be observed, one more character, these are to be seen in the figure, and that character is to be, which is the character? That character is to be seen, which is to be observed, and that character is to be seen, observed, which is the, this is the orange mass of egg. And this orange mass of egg, which is to be important, which is to be most useful, because this mass, these are nothing but the prawns, these are to be mature prawn, these are to be ready for breeding, and this prawn, this is to be show the ovary of egg, which is to be, that is mass of sponge or the sponge, these are to be seen, and this is to be ready for spawning, liberating the eggs. Such a prawn, these are to be caught, these are to be captured, or after discharging, after breeding these eggs, this prawn, these are to be suited, this prawn, these are to be ideal to capture, to catch for food and feeding, because at least one chance is to be given to the prawns, and eggs, these are to be released. This prawn, these are to be used. This prawn is to be ideal for fishing, ideal for catching the harvesting, and that's why such prawn, these are to be select, such prawn, these are to be choose for the fish harvesting, fish catching. Then, to reduce the considerable losses during the prawn catching, following are the some precautions and following are the some measures they can taken to reduce the considerable loss, to reduce the, that is, which is to be mortality, which is to be occur, which is to be reduce the risk. Some precautions, some measures they can taken. Some measure, these are to be important to take consideration for the harvesting of prawns. Feeding should be stopped 2 to 3 days before catching. Feeding should be stopped before 2 to 3 days before catching. Water should be clean and clear. Harvesting should be done in the cool weather early in the morning. When weather, these are to be cool, and early in the morning, prawn can be caught, these are to be captured. Generally, long transportation should be avoided, because when these are to be long transportation, prawn can be injured. Required and expected quantities of prawn can be captured. How much demand, how much supply? First we can note it down. First we can estimate the demand and supply according to the law of demand and supply. Required quantity, required quality and quantity of prawn, these are to be caught, these are to be captured. Well developed and mature prawn can be captured. Just I have told you earlier, those are mature, those are ready, breeding the eggs. After breeding, these prawn, these are to be caught, these are to be captured. One chance is to be given to develop to grow. Small size prawns should be not captured, they can grow up to a marketable size. A chance is to be given to the small prawn. Continuous fishing or harvesting is not occurred in culture form or the culture medium, because prawns should be threatened and frightened, and when they can threaten, they can injure and their legs can be damaged. To avoid continuous harvesting or continuous fishing, these are to be not done in culture pond. Prawn culturing is depending upon the market condition as well as demand and supply. Those demand and those provide, these are to be supplied, these are to be seen, these are to be found, these are to be seen. And with this prawn, it is to be so that systematic culturing and systematic capturing is to be essential. When these are to be systematic culture, when these are to be systematic harvesting is to be done, then they can increase the production of prawn. And with this some precaution they can taken. With this precaution, these are to be seen, then prawn, these are to be caught, these are to be captured, these are to be catching. With this we have seen methods of fishing. Again, separate article, separate point, which is to be, we have seen the craft and gears which is to be employed, craft and gears which is to be used, methods of prawn fishing which is to be used in next article, that is the inland fishing crafts as well as that is marine fishing crafts and marine fishing gears we have seen in next period. This is a separate article, separate point for studying of the or catching of the prawns. Up to here we have seen the all essential culturable points. Again, we have completed this article. Hope we have understand and better study all these points. Thank you, all of you.